Hey guys, my name is Nick and welcome to my channel. I consider it my job to try and find the best recommendations for you guys when it comes to entertainment, especially on streaming services. So if you're in the mood for a thrill, today let's look at the 10 best horror films currently streaming on Netflix. I'm not going to include Netflix original movies because I'm planning a separate video on Netflix original movies, so if you want that, let me know in the comments and I'll fast track it. But with movies coming and going constantly, I know how it goes. I'm going to look at what's on Netflix right now that I'm going to recommend to you, and if you like this style of video, let me know, and I'll do regular updates for different genres. Kicking things off at number 10, I have Child's Play, the original from 1988, the creepy killer doll movie that probably scared the hell out of you before you even saw it if you were a Blockbuster kid like me. In this movie, young kid Andy gets a new toy doll that just so happens to have the soul of a serial killer trapped inside of it. Well, that sounds like all kinds of stupid. I guarantee that this movie packs quite a punch over 30 years later. And oddly enough, the only other Child's Play movie on Netflix is Cult of Chucky. So you've got the first one and the last one in the main Child's Play series. So if you want to watch those, there you go. At number 9, I have Event Horizon, the 90s sci-fi horror film that is... Woo! This film follows a group of astronauts traveling through space searching for the Event Horizon, a spaceship that went missing after it got sucked into a black hole. And what they uncover is downright horrifying. This isn't a creature feature like Alien, but if you're into those Lost in Space type of films, then I highly recommend this one. I don't want to spoil what actually happens, and I'm sure if you look up this movie at all, it will give everything away. So all I can say is head straight to Netflix and watch Event Horizon, because this movie, it starts out like a typical thriller for a good chunk of it, and then things get bonkers. At number 8, I have As Above, So Below, and this is a controversial pick within the horror community, but I think that's mostly because of the bias against found footage films. And I like found footage if it suits the material properly, and this one is so on point. In As Above, So Below, a group of explorers search through the catacombs beneath Paris, France, in search of an artifact, but what they come across... Well, I guess we can learn from horror films, just don't ever go looking for anything, because you'll end up... I don't want to spoil this one as well, but it's also pretty much the same situation as Event Horizon. What they come across, what they end up in, ooh! What I love about this one is that it's like adventure horror, which is something we don't often see, but it has these Indiana Jones vibes. And it's also like The Descent in that our characters are dealing with the main conflict of just surviving, being trapped in these catacombs before the supernatural elements set in. Not only is this a good found footage horror film, but it is legit scary. Again, I'm trying to stay away from the spoils, but there is a sequence towards the end, if you've seen it, you know, with the blood river and the things and the hands, and I am just having a waking nightmare thinking about it. So let's move on to number 7, The Invitation. Drastically shifting gears here, this one follows a man invited to a dinner party hosted by his ex-wife, who left him after the loss of their child. So he brings his new girlfriend along, but his ex-wife seems like a completely different person. Things are very strange, and the tension only rises as the night progresses. I can't even get into this movie without talking about the goods, but I'll say that I normally am not into paranoid thrillers where our characters are just freaking out over nothing, but if you're the type of person that likes your suspense to lead to something, this movie ends with quite the bang. At number 6, I have Candyman. This 90s thriller follows a graduate student, played by Virginia Madsen, researching urban legends, and she comes across the story of Candyman, who is basically Bloody Mary but Tony Todd with a hook for a hand. And the way that this movie plays out becomes so much more entertaining every time I watch it. I just can't believe how good this movie actually is. It blends the psychological thriller with bits of the slasher, but it is so much more than you think just looking at the cover of this movie. And we have a quasi-sequel coming out later this year, produced by Jordan Peele. So definitely brush up on your Candyman knowledge, and don't say his name 5 times in front of a mirror. Number 5, The Ring. If I have to explain to you why this movie is scary, then we just have completely different tastes. But this movie was based on the novel by Koji Suzuki and also the Japanese film Ringu, of course, and this one follows a single mother and reporter played by Naomi Watts who is investigating a killer videotape. Basically in this movie, if you watch this particular videotape, you'll get a phone call after with a strange voice saying 7 days, and then 7 days later, you die. This plot might sound a bit dated, but trust me, it is so well done and so well acted. This is one of the best horror films of all time, which I will stand by for life because I think it is absolutely terrifying. I saw this movie when it initially came out in 2002, like at the beginning of me becoming a horror fan. This is the movie that kind of made me a horror fan because it scared the living shit out of me. I went to go see it with friends without having seen a trailer. I knew nothing about it. If you remember at this time, there was so much like mystery around this movie. You had no idea what it really was. My friends and I just went in blind, and yeah, it will stay with me forever. At number 4, I have Train to Busan, one of the most celebrated horror films of the 2010s. And in this movie, set in South Korea, a group of passengers aboard a train must deal with a zombie outbreak. Now, full disclosure, I have not seen this movie all the way through, so I know, like, who am I? What am I doing? I don't know why I have put off finishing Train to Busan. I don't know, but I've seen enough to believe the hype, and I fully get why everyone loves this one. So, like me, if you haven't really seen it, definitely get on Netflix and check this one out. And we're getting down to it. I'll tell you right now, my top 3 are all classic horror films that I'm so glad are streaming on Netflix so that everyone can get a chance to see them. So at number 3, I have The Evil Dead, the most cabin-in-the-woods horror film ever made. In this movie, a group of friends head out to the woods for a weekend of good times, but these idiots stupidly unleash an unspeakable evil that ends up turning them into these zombie demon things known as Deadites. This movie is super low budget and cheesy as all hell, but it really holds a special place in my heart for 2 reasons. 1, I saw it when I was way too young and it scared the hell out of me. 2, this movie was made by Sam Raimi and other Michiganders like myself, and they just went out into the woods and they made a movie with almost no money, and they made a thing out of it, and it still holds up as a cult classic today, and I just find that so inspiring as well as entertaining. At number 2, I have Rosemary's Baby. This classic supernatural thriller, based on the novel by Ira Levin, is set in New York City in the late 1960s as a young married couple moves into a new apartment. Strange occurrences lead to the wife Rosemary's pregnancy, but that's only the beginning of the horrors. And you probably know exactly what happens, where this ends, how things end up, but you know what? I just won't say it for the sake of anyone who's like, I don't want to watch an old horror film. Watch it. This is prestige horror. The writing, the acting, the directing, the production design, the cinematography. This is a fucking masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. I love Rosemary's Baby, and I thought it was going to be my number 1, but of course, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is also streaming on Netflix. This movie is everything. Not only did it help kick off the slasher craze, but it is the holy grail of grindhouse horror. And somehow every time I watch it, it still manages to be horrifying and disturbing, but also so watchably entertaining. It's like the car crash you can't not look at. In this film, a group of friends head to a cemetery to make sure a relative's grave is intact after reports of multiple grave robbings. While in the area, they stop at the old family house, and then some idiots wander off into the house full of cannibalistic murderers that are ready to slice them up with power tools. This is another movie that was made by student filmmakers with pretty much nothing, and it is what I consider a horror masterpiece. I mean, there is just nothing really like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it, and nothing else really comes close to what this movie does. Initially criticized for being graphically violent, this movie actually has very little blood in it, and it allows the viewer to create the horror within their mind because you don't really see it on screen, but there is a lot on screen that gives you the idea of what to imagine yourself, and I think that's why it's endured for so long. Almost 50 years we're going to be coming up on. Thank you so much for watching this video. I greatly appreciate it. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this, if you want more regular recommendations when it comes to your favorite streaming services. Thanks again for watching. Let me know what your favorites are in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you thought of this list. Like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to watch this now, because duh.